Alright, I'm just going to give you a quick overview in this video of my installation of these aftermarket projector headlights on my 2012 Focus SE. It's a hatch model, you can see, and I didn't really care for the stock, chrome headlights, so I went with these aftermarket ones. And basically these are a copy of the ST3 Focus headlights, like the European ones, with the projectors, and I've made some modifications to them because I didn't really care for how they set up. They are plug and play. They come with an H7 halogen projector bulb and an H7 high beam bulb, and they have this little H1, they call it a cornering bulb, it's a LED, and then they have the light up LED light across the top here. And how it's wired with these, when you just plug and play, that LED light comes on with your parking lights, which is actually how it is on the real ST3 lights. It was not a daytime running lamp like you would think it would, like it is on most modern cars. Also, the turn signal in these in these lights is a single filament bulb, which means there's no parking light. It just turns on with the turn signal. The parking lights on this setup are this white LED and this angel eye here. Technically, that doesn't really conform to United States standards for Department of Transportation, but I really didn't care for how it looked either. So what I'm doing in my case is I'm going to disable this bulb here because I don't like the way it looks. I'm going to be adding HID to these projectors, and they're actually set up for HID. In fact, on the bottom of the case here, it even says HID, so that they kind of just put the H7 in there to make it legal for sale in the United States or whatever for cost purposes, but these are definitely set up for an HID bulb, and they do make a nice sharp cutoff line. Also, I'm going to be modifying these so this LED strip comes on not only with the parking lights, but also with when the car's running all the time, just like any other modern car. That's going to take a little bit more work and a little bit of internal wiring. So basically what I did to facilitate the changes that I wanted to make, I'm not going to completely cover them in detail, but because a lot of this stuff's optional, but I wanted this to be not only the turn signal, but also the parking lights. So I needed to add a dual filament bulb, and the easiest way I found to do that was to buy a 1157 bulb. These lights came with like a P21Y single filament bulb, which is similar size. I went with a 1157, and that will give me my dual filament. Obviously, the brighter one being for the turn signal. It's really easy to splice in. I also bought, and I'll put links to all this stuff below where I found it. On Amazon, I found the base connectors and had to modify them slightly by grinding off 2 tabs. The connector that was in the light only had 1 tab on it, so I ground off, or it had 2 tabs. The 1157 bases had 4. I was able to grind off 2 of them, and it fit right in here. As far as wiring it, I just connected the negative line to the negative bulb that was in here, the positive to the high side of the bulb for the turn signal, and then the negative, when I disabled this light here, there's a tan wire inside of here, 2 tan wires, one that runs up here to this, and one that goes to this. I just cut that wire in half, and I spliced it in with a diode, which would not be necessary if you weren't going to be having the lights powered by the ignition like I am. But I spliced that in to the low side of this. Therefore, when the parking lights are on, you have your single filament. Now, I did use some diodes to create a one-way path. That way, you can use this for not only the parking lights, but also an ignition source. And then what I did is I fed that ignition source out the back here on each light, and then I'm just going to run a single wire to each headlight that is a positive 12 volt ignition source when the car is running, which will power this, and I'll just pull that out of the wiring here. I'll find my 12 volts only when the car is on. To turn it into an HID setup, I used all Morimoto parts, Morimoto H7 HID bulbs. I've got my Morimoto ballast right here, my XB35 ballast. which are secured on both sides of the car. And then I created a relay harness with two relays, two separate relays instead of one, because I wanted a feed on both sides. So each side has its own feed, as you can see, and then it has its own relay to turn on each side. And the reason I did that is most relay harnesses you'll find, they only have one, so you connect the headlights from one side to it, from the factory connector, and then it powers up both sides. Well, the body control modules, the BCMs in these Focuses are very touchy, and they like to see something, some kind of a draw from both sides, even if it's just to power a relay. And I also had to go in with the program Forscan and change some settings in the BCM. I'll show you a little bit of that. Unfortunately, you know, I've done a lot of work with Forscan on my other Ford vehicles, and I thought I had it all figured out. But the Focus is a whole different animal. It's a European type car. It's very different. It has a what's called a central configuration, which is a lot different than most Ford vehicles that don't have that type of setup. And it's pretty technical stuff, but the short of it is it's not as easy to modify parameters on these cars. And a lot of people have used this program called Focus. It's a Russian program in the past. That is a very unreliable, bad program. It's outdated. It does not work good. You do run a good risk of bricking one of your computers in your car if you use that program, especially depending on the quality of your programming cable. And so I won't be endorsing that or how to do it with that program. Forscan is a much better program. I was able to go into the options, and unfortunately, you know, if you do a lot of reading online, you'll hear of maybe something called an alternative HID setting. I was not able to use that because that wasn't even an option in Forscan. So I set the car up to use the, it's like the GDI setup. It's basically one of the options in Forscan for if this car had factory HID headlights. And the problem with using that is it requires a different BCM technically for it to recognize that command. But by enabling that, it does cause an error code in your BCM. It does not trigger a check engine light. You'll never know about it again after that, and everything works fine. And you will not get any errors on your dash stating that your headlights, it's called a dipped beam error, that your headlights are out. If you do not do anything and you just try to run these as is, you will get an error on the display in the car. You can use they call CAN bus eliminators or resistors, but even people doing that have got bad results. They burn out. The proper way to do it is to re-flash the BCM, and like I said, I'll show you a little bit of that, how I did it, but it does work. Works great. So I'm going to be installing these back in the car now. I ran all the wiring across the front here on my relay harness, and it just runs down. And I kind of just made this harness to where it comes out and everything's just kind of neatly zip tied in place and out of the way. I took power right off the battery, which is under here, and just went down right into the relay harness. And then you have to have a ground, and I'm grounded. You can't see it. Well, yeah, you can. It's right here, just to the frame. Have a good solid ground connection for everything right at the frame. And then, like I said, I'm going to pull my wire from my ignition source off of here to feed the headlights. That way, when the car is running, we'll have these little angel eye daytime running lights activated. So I'm going to get everything bolted in. It's really simple. We're talking plug and play here. And then there's just two bolts. One goes up here, and one goes down here to bolt the headlight in. I'll be right back with that. Alright, so I just got them plugged in. There's a bunch of extra like empty fuse spots in here, and I just found one that was positive when it was the car was running. As you can see, there's what the eyebrows look like. The car's running. There's no other lights on. Alright, so with the car off, I hit the unlock button. Makes the eyebrows come on and the parking lights together. So like I said, these lights normally, when you buy these on eBay or Amazon or wherever, they don't have a parking light here. So I didn't really care for that. So as you can see, looks pretty good like that. And you get the high light with the turn signal. Here's what the headlights themselves look like with everything on. That adds a nice touch to the car. So here's the cutoff at night, what it looks like. I could probably aim these a little bit better here, but it's definitely a nice sharp line. Alright, well now I'm in the car and I'm ready to program it. To do so, I'm using this USB, it's a BB Fly ELM interface. And what's nice about this one is it has a switch, so you can switch between the high-speed CAN bus or the MS or medium-speed CAN bus, which means you can access every system on most Ford vehicles. Some of the other ones you'll find out there, the real cheap ones, don't have this, but you can find this on Amazon. I did have one problem with one of these just dying on me, but it had worked for a couple of years before it died, so I ordered another one. So first step is we will plug this into the port down below, and we'll start with it in the high speed position. And your OBD2 port is down under the dash here. Alright, so now I got that plugged in. If you've never used this with your computer before, there's a little bit of driver setup that needs to go along with it, but it's all in the instructions when you get it. Connect it. Then we'll open up our Forscan application here. Okay. Before you do anything, it's important you have the ignition on but not running. So go ahead and turn the ignition on. Then down here we'll connect to the vehicle. Just tells you all the same things I just did. Take your model year in this case, version of sync that you have. It's going through its boot up, looking for all the modules, scanning for codes. It's also important that you have a full battery, and if necessary, put a battery charger on it. If for some reason your battery goes low during this procedure, you can destroy your car. It says please flip the switch. So flip the switch. That way you can continue reading the other modules. Would you like to save the profile? You can. I'm not going to. Alright, so it's done. So what we're going to want to do is to go into module programming. It's right here. Click that. And you want your body central configuration main is what you're going to want. You'll see also down here there's an IPC central configuration backup. And what that is your BCM stores the main configuration for the car. If something is wrong with the BCM, the car will automatically look for the backup location, which is this one here, to try to get the information it needs to run the car. So there's a main and a backup. A lot of people just change the main and they don't do the backup. I did both, and they're both the exact same way, so I'm not going to show you how to do both. But in our case today, we want to modify the body control central configuration, so click that. Hit the start button. It's going to say please flip the switch to the high speed CAN. Do that. Alright, it's telling you that it has to load a secondary bootloader It will have to download this, so you need to make sure that you're connected to the internet with your laptop when you do this. Your computer goes through some malfunction indicators. Don't worry, that's normal. There's your progress bar down there below. Please turn the ignition off. And click OK. All right, and here we are. So these are all the parameters you can change. Now, the only thing that I'm going to change is here where it says headlights type. And then to change it, you need to go up here to mode. I'm going to make engineering mode, which means you have access to modify everything. So you can look through that if you want. I would be very careful about what you go and change. But anyway, while we're in here, so we want to change headlights type. Double click that. Here's your options. So if you've seen a tutorial on the internet about using the Focus app, it says alternative HID. Well, there is no option like that in Forscan, unfortunately. So normally it would be O2, halogen lights with adjuster. In my case, I selected this advanced front lighting system with static bending. I don't know what halogen headlamps NAS means. Someone else and one of the forums said they use that setting. Either way, it doesn't really matter, because no matter what setting you use, it's going to throw a code. So we'll click this one here, and you click the check mark. I'm not going to, since I already changed it. And then while I was in here, I changed my fog lamp setting. It normally would be fog light without high beam headlamp. I changed mine to fog lamps without restrictions, which means even when your high beams are on, your fog lamps can be on. That was just for fun while I was in here. Once you do all that, scratch that, go back one step. Before you change anything, I would save your initial factory configuration. That way, in case you mess something up, you can go back and load it and write it. But after you've saved it, then change these settings, and then we're going to click write, and then it will go through the sequence to write it back to the computer, and then you're done. Okay? Pretty simple, but just make sure that you follow all the prompts and you have a full battery when you do this. So I'm going to stop this procedure here. Once again, it would be the same thing for your instrument panel cluster, your central configuration backup. You do the same thing. Click that, click the run button with the ignition on, and it will go through the procedure. When you are all done, you're going to have some DTCs because the instrument cluster lost communication. So here's a left turn signal, short circuit to battery open. That's because I had removed one of the headlights. Right front turn indicator, once again. And then control module configuration incompatible. It's going to say that no matter what you do, and don't worry, there will be no check engine light. Like I said, that's because it's looking for the headlight control module that is not there. So we'll go ahead and we're going to clear these trouble codes. Follow the prompts. Again, follow the prompt. And as you can see, everything's done. We have no trouble codes except just the one. The control module configuration incompatible. Like I said, that's nothing to worry about. All right, so we'll go ahead and we will go back to the main screen here. We're going to disconnect from the vehicle when we're done. Once you're disconnected, go ahead and turn your ignition off. And now we're finished, and now your headlights will work with no warning messages on your dash. Alright, so hopefully this video helped you out, and hopefully you enjoy your new headlights. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. Please like the video if it helped you, and subscribe to my channel for more. We'll talk to you later. Bye.